brothers, to week 8 of our workshop together here this evening. It's now December. I can hardly believe we're already into the month of December. Just a couple short weeks from Christmas time, a little bit longer. We all want peace. Yes, we all want peace. That's the chapter we're going to be going over today. And it looks like guys are still kind of coming in a little bit slowly here this evening. We do expect Jim Heaney to be joining us here. He was at our planning meeting earlier today, so he should be in at some point shortly. So just take a couple deep breaths, kind of settle into the space. It's really good to see all of you with us. And I think I'll ask Chester to start us off here with a poem.
Yeah, this poem for today is from Chelan Harkin. I've used her poems before in this, and she came out with a new book called Wild Grace, and the name of this poem is Wild Grace. And when we were planning, I read it, and it really fits right into what we're talking about today. So I'm going to read it twice, actually, because it's a relatively short poem. So put me amidst life's simplest things that give their lives to blooming or quietly glowing without reaching for a name. Open me in a way that allows silence to be a deep source of nourishment. Let me gather the great bundle of my every mistake and shortcoming into my arms like a vast bouquet and thank it for making a gentler and more honest place out of my heart. I want no spiritual mastery, but to be porous like the earth to the nourishing rain. Dear God, if you please, no more of this distance. Plant yourself in my body. I want nothing but to be alive with wild grace. Read that again. Put me amidst life's simplest things that give their lives to blooming or quietly glowing without reaching for a name. Open me in a way that allows silence to be a deep source of nourishment. Let me gather the great bundle of every mistake and shortcoming into my arms like a vast bouquet and thank it for making a gentler and more honest place out of my heart. I want no spiritual mastery, but to be porous like the earth to the nourishing rain. Dear God, if you please, no more of this distance. Plant yourself in my body. I want nothing but to be alive with wild grace.
Thank you, Chester. And brothers, that poem Wild Grace by Chelan Harkin is already posted at our website under week 8, so you can revisit that at your convenience. Let's open up with some dedications here this evening. Let's dedicate our council. If you have dedication to share, please. We'd love you to share it with us now.
I'd like to dedicate this to our grandson Soren, who's 5 years old. His parents have both retreated from the faith perspectives they grew up in. And so we've not had any conversation with Soren about our faith, but a couple times now he's used the term Christian, and the other day he said, "You should tell me more about Christian." So we're hoping to gently get into some talk about the nativity. I'm complete.
Yeah.
All in.
I'd like to make a dedication. Today is the day where we have created the first chapter of Illumin in the country of Canada. And so here we go.
Awesome. Yeah.
All in.
I'd like to dedicate this session to my youngest brother, who spent Thanksgiving alone and separated from his family for reasons that he was not able to control. And, just for all those men who are suffering through the holidays right now.
All in. I'd like to dedicate this council to a couple people that I know are really struggling with addiction right now, and it's turned into legal troubles, and are really struggling to kind of find their way in that fog. All in.
I've recently had an opportunity to go to 4 different cities where the homeless were remarkable, including Charlottesville, Virginia. I'd like to dedicate this to the men and women who are homeless.
Yeah, I'd like to dedicate those who are suffering from war, both in Ukraine and Palestine and Israel, that somehow we find a peaceful solution, and not continue to sacrifice, the innocent people around that.
Thank you, brothers. Really appreciate your dedications, and we bring all the unspoken dedications into our circle as well this evening. Now let's try some introductions here. Bill Fleming, would you mind just introducing yourself and talk a little bit about your experience with practicing presence here?
Yeah, my name is Bill Fleming. Can you hear me okay, Brian?
Absolutely, you sound great.
I grew up in Queens and left New York around the age of 26 or 27. We've been out here in Naperville, close to Chicago, for the last many, many years. Good place for us to be. And I went on my MROP over in Arizona back in 2012. It was fantastic. And what I couldn't hang on to after going to that, after being in that experience, was contact with other similar minded people. I'm finding Illumin and this opportunity and some retreats in my area to be quite helpful in this. On presence, I was washing the bathroom floor today and started to realize, hey, this is what I'm doing in the present moment. This is important. I am open to whatever this moment gives me. This kind of thing has given me a sense of prayer and presence over the last 8 or 9 months, 8 or 9 weeks, that has never really struck me that way. So I want to thank you guys for this special gift. Amen.
All in. Thank you so much, Bill. That's wonderful. Did I see? Yeah, Chris Mula, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about your experience of practicing presence?
Yeah, from South Louisiana. Any of you ever watched Swamp People? I live right in the middle of all of them, and so experienced Men's Rite of Passage, October of 2016, up around the San Antonio area, and it just I had a night of desolation, no way other way to explain it, and like Bill, when I came back, they warned me. I mean, it was like I was a Martian or an alien. They were wary, especially of the term contemplation or meditation. They said really watch out for that. Anyway, and so from 2016 on, just began a downward slide, trying to come to grips with trauma from my past, and ended in my marriage failing desperately, terribly. And about three years ago, I recognized that while a lot of bad things happened to me, I didn't want to live in that victim mentality anymore, because the only real human victim that ever walked the earth was Jesus. He gave up everything to come and put on the human flesh, and I don't believe he went back to the Trinity, because it doesn't say he did. So he gave up a lot for me. And when I saw this come up, it was like, oh my gosh, man, I had been doing some meditation, but nothing like this. And especially over the last 3 weeks, dealing with parents who, are failing in health. And it's just been I've actually been amazed that taking everything that I've learned, whether I've been a part of this or not. It's the peace that, I've had discussions with men, and the question keeps coming up, what makes you come alive? And it's simply being in the presence of God. But we think it's only in a certain space and time, but it's actually always. And it's very comforting. And in the little ding I get every hour, sometimes it's incredibly inconvenient, but sometimes it's like, oh, thank God, just breathe, in his presence. And so that's where I'm at.
Thank you. All in, Chris. Thank you. I appreciate it. Chris, we have some wonderful brothers down in Louisiana. If you ever want to reach out to me, I don't know how connected you are down there, but I'll be glad to help connect you.
Well, I had been connected to him, and I sort of got disconnected because of circumstances. So, and in Mississippi, I'm very close to Mississippi now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, great. This is such a delight. Everybody else, I believe, that's with us this evening has had a chance to share. If I'm incorrect, just let me know. We'd love to hear from you. And there's only a couple men we haven't heard from. And maybe if they're here next week, we'll be able to bring them as well. But yeah, this is so wonderful to see all the guys from different places, up and down the coast, in the Midwest, all the way out to Vancouver. And that's great news, Lee. Love it about the chapter in Canada. That's awesome. So welcome in, brothers, again. And as usual here, we're going to start off with a 10-minute practice of presence. So I'm going to wind that up here right now.
We start each day with the practice of presence and bring in stillness. That is our foundation that we return to throughout the day. Practice this exercise in a quiet, comfortable place, if possible, either sitting on the floor or in a chair with your back straight. Aim to work up to 15 to 20 minutes. There are very specific reasons why we practice presence the way we do. Our experience is that it makes access to stillness easier and deeper. We put our hand over our heart because this helps release a calming hormone called oxytocin. We praise God because it humbles us. We are aware that we cannot change ourselves without experiencing God's Spirit within us. Our core intention is always to connect with our vibrant inner life, which is God's spiritual energy. Keep in mind that you may slowly say a sacred word, such as Yahweh or Jesus, on each in-breath, which makes it easier to actually take those long, slow breaths. To begin, sit quietly and put your hand over your heart. Praise God and ask Him what you would like Him to do for you inside. For example, Father, all goodness comes from you. Let your peace flow through me. Take a deep, slow breath in, breathing deeply through your nose. Follow the breath as it fills your lungs up with air. Expand your chest until you cannot take in any more air. Release the breath slowly out through your nose until all the air is expended. The out breath should be longer than the in breath. On the slow out breath, you should soon start to feel stillness and get a taste of your vibrant inner life. It is when you start to become aware of it on some level. Focus on the breath with each slow intake and each slow outtake. Focusing on the breath is essential in the practice of presence. When we are consciously focusing on our breath, we cannot think at the same time. When we are consciously present, there are no worries, anxieties, or stress, no lack of self-esteem, because none of that exists in this present moment. It only happens in our unobserved mind, when we are unconsciously living through memory or anticipation. It is important to continue taking 3 deep conscious breaths once an hour or more throughout the day. This is how the practice of presence teaches us, through the stillness we create and what we experience inside. That vibrant inner life is God's Spirit within us, our inner intelligence. When we start the day this way, it becomes our foundation. We know exactly what we're looking for then and throughout the day. This is the first part of inner conditioning, which is essential. That is what renews us throughout the day. You have completed the morning practice. Now continue taking 3 conscious breaths or more every hour to renew yourself.
All right, brothers, welcome back. I want to welcome in a couple more gentlemen here with us this evening, including Jim Heaney, who's with us at this point. All right. Sorry,
Jim,
go
you're
ahead.
muted. You're muted, Jim.
For some reason, I've written down it's 5:30.
Oh. Huh.
I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, that's all right. We've just completed the practice of presence, and actually, brothers, what we have for you at this time is we're going to give you a little brief introduction to the updating practice of presence app. You've heard us talk a lot about it throughout the workshop, and we've been using it for our practice here in the evenings. But we really want to. There's 2 reasons we're really excited about it. One is we just released an update that just brings the app together a little bit more closely with our website, our YouTube channel, where we post a lot of information, and we plan to continue to do that. And it's such a key part of breaking down resistance and helping you keep going with the practice on a regular basis. So, that's why we really want to show it to you. And I think one of the things I learned is I maybe should have had this video to show you about the app earlier on in the workshop, because I know some of you have been working with it. Some of you have probably looked at it, maybe had some technical issues with it and things like that. And we really want you to use it. And so this afternoon, I actually recorded a brief video of me describing how to download the app on the iPhone. Hello, brothers. I want to show you how to install the updated Practicing Presence app on your iPhone. That happens to be the device that I have and the easiest one for me to show you on, but the process is very similar for Google. So you're looking at my iPhone home screen, and so we're going to start off, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to the iOS App Store. On an Android phone, you would go to the Google Play Store or whichever store where it is that you typically get your applications from. So I'm going to tap on the App Store. That's the blue icon in the upper right-hand area. And once I'm there, in the search field, and if you didn't see search, what you would do is you would go to the lower right-hand corner, you tap the magnifying glass, and that would bring up the search. And you type in Practicing Presence and hit search, which is the blue button in the lower right-hand corner. And you'll notice the first thing that comes up is Practicing Presence a Christian Way. And that's the updated app here. And you'll notice that instead of seeing a button that says Get next to it, you'll see a little cloud with a down arrow. That's because I've downloaded and installed the application in the past. If you already have the Practicing Presence app installed on your computer, you may see a button that says Update. But since I want to get this, I'm going to tap on the little cloud icon to download it to my phone. Now, if I hadn't tapped this in before, it would probably prompt me for my password or Face ID authentication in order just to verify that you want to do this. But there is no charge. You will not be charged at all for downloading and installing this app. I click on that. It goes through the process of installing. When it's done, I can hit Open here, or I can swipe up from the bottom and go back to my home screen. And you'll notice, see, this is the screen I started out on, but it puts it on your very last screen. You'll see that the Presence app has installed. It's the very last app on here. So I tap on Presence, and it opens up. And when you open up the Presence app for the very first time, you're greeted with 3 buttons: Getting Started, Morning Practice, and 3 questions. And as you would think, Getting Started would be the place to start. So you tap on the Getting Started button.
Taking 3 conscious breaths or more every hour. You will now set up an hourly reminder to help you do this throughout the day.
So at this
Click
point,
Set Up when you are ready.
you'll be prompted to set up your hourly reminder. It takes you to the page. And so I usually set my reminders, my hourly reminders. I usually start them at 7 a.m. and then I end them about 9 p.m. And you can set these for the hours that work best for you. And then you'll get a message from the iOS operating system saying, do you want to allow Presence app to send you hourly notifications? You click allow, and that's done. It says there's a confirmation. Click OK. When you're done with this, you go in the upper left-hand corner, tap on home, and here you are greeted with the home screen. And you'll notice on the home screen that the bubbles have changed a little bit. You have morning practice, you have the 3 questions bubble, and then you have 3 breaths or more. And the 3 breaths or more is the narration that we just went through. And the 3 questions will walk you through the 3 questions. And of course, the morning practice, click on
We
that.
start each day with the practice of presence and
Familiar with
bringing
this screen.
stillness. That is our foundation.
You can set your morning practice for 10 minutes and work your way up to 20 minutes. You can also set it to go on indefinitely. And of course, after the 10, 15, or 20-minute practice, you can continue to play the music. Some other additional updates that we have in this app is if you click on the lower left-hand corner, you'll notice the eye. And that's the information screen where we actually set up our notifications. We also have some links to our website, ways to get in contact with us, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, also where you can interact with Choosing Presence. And you also have a button at the bottom that allows you to leave a review. So you can leave a review for the app on the App Store. And if you do that, that would be very helpful for us to get more people to engage with the app and use the app. Click the home in the upper left-hand corner. You'll go back to the home screen. And you click the middle button that looks like a play arrow. And that actually links you to some of the videos that we have published. And we can always put more in here, newer and more informational videos about Choosing Presence. And if you tap on, for instance, the second one here is a Choosing Presence conversation at Tamiya. That's a video that we produced at the end of 2022 with Jim Taylor and Jim Heaney and myself at Tamiya during Solarize. It's about just under an hour, but a really in-depth conversation on the practice of presence, and I encourage you to watch that. So you would tap on that, and the video will begin playing right in your phone. You can actually change the orientation of your phone in order to see that video as full screen. Simply rotate the video back. You can tap the screen to pause the video. Click the X in the upper left-hand corner, go back to the video screen. Click on home, and then come back to the home screen. The last button on the bottom is a book, and that links you to the Choosing Presence book for people that are interested in that. You can view it at Amazon, purchase it at Amazon. You can also go to Amazon if you've got the book and leave a review. Again, reviews are very helpful, just like for the app, to get other people to notice the book and to perhaps purchase it or engage with the practice of presence. So that, in a nutshell, is how you install and use the Practice of Presence application. It's the same process for the Android phones. Instead of going to the iOS App Store, obviously you would go to the Google Play Store or wherever you get the app. So I'm going to swipe out of the app again. And so when I get up in the morning, I simply open my phone, come over, tap on the Presence app, click on morning practice.
We start each day with the practice of presence.
Set my
and
morning
bringing
practice for 20
stillness.
minutes and begin the practice.
That is our foundation that we.
All right, brothers, thank you for watching that video. When I look back, I just recorded that video about 5:30 Eastern time. I clearly was at the nadir of my day. I did bring a lot of energy to that video, but I hope that did walk you through kind of how to set up and install it. And again, I invite you to reach out to me if you have any questions or issues. We want to know about those. We really want you to use this app and to find it useful. And maybe something you can help people in your life with too. Somebody else, your partner, family members or friends might be interested in it as well. So please, and take a look at that. And thank you very much. Jim, Chester, anything you'd like to say about the app?
No, I think you explained it very well.
Great. All right. Well, I did get my second wind here this evening. It's exciting to be here. I always feel more energized when I'm with you guys. So we'll bring a little more energy to our next section here. We're actually going to, I had in the reminder email, the summary for last week, we talked we reiterated that Jim said he'd like you to try practicing presence while in traffic. You could certainly use your phone in the car to help you with the 3 questions. But anyway, you could have asked those to you while you're in traffic and just see how that changed your orientation to the experience. So Chester has a little bit of a reflection, and then we're going to ask you guys also to share some of your reflections.
Yeah, we talked about it this morning when we met. This Saturday, we had an event for Lumen of Illinois, John the Baptist event, and it's about an hour away from my house, and it's mostly highway driving. And I'm kind of a impatient and somewhat aggressive driver. So usually if I get on the road, I'm I peg the left lane, and if somebody's in front of me, I'll go around them. I've always told my wife, I know that I'm present when I start driving slowly and relaxed, right? And I turned on the practicing present app, actually the morning practice. I just turned it on in infinite loop. It was really interesting. I just kind of mellowed out in the left lane, didn't pass anybody, just listening to it, really relaxed. And it made a big difference when I arrived at our event. It was a half-day event, and I was just at peace. I arrived and I was absolutely at peace and just in the moment the whole time. And it really set the stage for me. So hopefully, you guys have tried it as well. But, Jim talked about it last week, and it really made a difference for me.
Great. Thank you. And
Thank you.
brothers, do any of you have anything to share? Can you please unmute yourself and feel free to share about your experience of trying practicing presence in the car.
I would just say it's really hard for me. I live in Montgomery County, Maryland, which is one of probably the densest counties in the country, and I have to commute in it. So it's so I'll often just be quiet, and I guess that's a form of it. But I haven't used the app yet. But I like the idea of asking the 3 questions. Of course, you don't want to close your eyes and do the practice when you're driving. But yeah, just sort of mindful driving has helped, but I just find it such a gauntlet to drive that it's hard to not be in a little bit of survival mode. I have taken the train in this area for something different, and that's totally different because I can relax what I'm doing. So I just want to name that I find it hard. But usually if I put on something that's Krista Tippett or Pray As You Go, where there's like something led, which I guess I could use this app for. And I don't know if people have used the actual meditation practice and you just keep eyes open and breathe. I imagine that would work, but it's a struggle for me. I guess I want to just name that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Again, brothers, the 3 questions are, am I present now? How do I feel inside? And do I have a sense of peace at some level? And I think maybe early on, I might have shared that if you can get yourself to these questions at any point, you're pretty much 90% of the way there of bringing yourself back to presence. I mean, sort of the realization that check-in is part of it. Has anybody else while driving or, at some point during their day noticed the ability to check in with these questions and had it make an impact or a difference?
Yeah, I just use the banner, the reminder comes on every hour on the hour. And if I'm in the car, I may not get to it immediately, but it sparks my inspiration to do it. Just take the deep breaths. And even if it's just very brief, it's good. So, but I don't try to, I haven't done anything with the longer sort of intentional meditation, more just the deep breaths. That's kind of where I am with the driving.
Thank you.
Notice that the graphic in your email shows a car on the highway with nobody in the driver's seat. So that's kind
I should have thought about that. Yeah. I've been fortunate for many, many years. I work from home, so I don't have a daily commute. I used to spend a lot of time on the roads, traveling around from office to office, and I really could have used something like this then. But I have since this year, but I've started having to go to Cincinnati on a weekly basis on Tuesdays, and that's about a 40-mile drive for me. And it's down I-75, which is just a gauntlet of traffic. In many places it's 3-4 lanes. It goes from Detroit all the way down to Miami. It's just truck traffic, and yeah, I've frequently since embarking on this practice just reminding myself to remain present. And there's certain days are better than others. Ironically, brothers, I find it that when the weather is good, that's when traffic seems to be the worst in some ways. Some days when the weather's bad, maybe people are more present generally. But yeah, having this tool there, especially on one way of that commute, is really helpful to just kind of sit back. And actually I get to the point almost where I enjoy it and say, I'm here, I'm a captive audience, all I can do is get there. And being present, just, it's just a better way to do it. And I'm excited. I have an older car, and I do find that the app works. I have a way to plug in my phone to my stereo, and playing the music almost has that sort of Pavlovian effect, that brings you back to your morning practice or whatever, and can kind of reduce some of the stress and anxiety. So, yeah, we urge you to continue to do that, to continue to think about ways that you can implement the practice of presence, and even check in and ask yourself those questions, and bring you back to the power of the present moment, at various points in your day. Jim, Chester, anything else you'd like to add to that?
Oh, the only thing I would add is mainly I think the most productive part of using it in the car, or most helpful from a practicing presence standpoint, is staying with the 3 questions and then going on to basically continue breathing as you're driving and listening to the music. Because it is quite relaxing after all these years. I first came out with it in 2020, so 3-4 years. I mean, let's do it every day. I've never gotten tired of it as long as I'm breathing. Okay, and it just makes, as you said earlier, Brian, you ask those 3 questions. You take that deep breath in. You're driving. You're not. We don't want you to stop meditating, closing your eyes. You can't do that. But you ask those 3 questions at the end, and that last question, well, am I present now? How do I feel inside? Do I have a sense of calm or peace at some level? I would say you do that consistently within a week or 2, or certainly within a month. When you ask that final question, the answer is going to be yes, 95% of the time. Now, think about the significance of that. To actually say, we can connect with a power, and it truly is a power, that could truly change us from the inside. When in our life could we say, I don't care how old you are, 30, 40, 50, 67, doesn't really matter. When you can connect with that power, which is God's spiritual energy, when you bring in stillness with that intention, that in itself is, for most people, is almost like a miracle. And we talk about having stress. We all have stress. But remember, everything about presence always comes back to inner spiritual conditioning. If we're doing the practice, okay, guess what? All those distractions, anxiety, worry, lack of self-esteem, anger, jealousy, envy, comparing, judging, they all start to diminish slowly but surely. And subtle changes until you realize, wow, inside, I'm almost like a different person when I'm practicing presence. And then it's not like we can say to ourselves, just you talk about practicing it and a clear before and after when we're practicing. And the first thing we might say to ourselves, well, this is like kind of too good to be true. I'm there, and all of a sudden I feel calm, and it evolves into peace. See, but it's much more powerful than that, because it extends into our daily life. We cannot say to ourselves in our morning practice, or even when we're in the car listening to saying the 3 questions and listening, we can't say to ourselves, oh, that was wonderful, and then go on and be unconscious for the rest of the day. Because guess what's going to happen? You have an obligation. Once you accept God's peace, God's forgiveness, we have an obligation to do the commandment he commanded us to do. love God, and love each other. And if we go back, okay, to selfish motives throughout the day, guess what? We sabotage that peace. So when we say it's not working, it's because we're not doing the work that changes every aspect of our life. And if presence wasn't changing every aspect of our practical life, why would we do it? And when we say, if we say to ourselves sometimes, well, this isn't really changing my practical life, then ask yourself the next question. Well, am I actually consistently bringing in stillness and asking those questions, doing the morning practice? I can guarantee you, almost 100% of the time, the answer will be, no, I'm not actually doing that. So we can't expect that power to internalize within us unless we are choosing it through stillness and intention.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank you. So, brothers, chapter 8 is what we're going to dive into a little bit right now, and we're going to ask maybe if you guys have some feedback or some questions in a few moments. Chapter 8 is we all want peace. The practice of presence gets us there. I almost feel like putting an exclamation point about we all want peace, because I really feel like that's why we're here. We really want to find some peace in our day, peace in our lives that's sustainable. This is probably my fourth or fifth time formally going through the book. And so I've read it multiple times. And I was telling Jim and Chester this morning that, I never read the same book twice. It's amazing that when I go back through this, I experience the chapters and a lot of the topics in a different way. The closest corollary I can come up with is 12 steps. Those of you that have some familiarity with the 12 steps, you first go into the 12 steps and you think, well, it's fairly straightforward. I'll work through these steps. I'll find someone to help me work through these steps and I'll move on. No, you realize that some people do this for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're not looking at the same 12 steps that maybe you are the first time you see them. And I'm finding that to be the case that every time I go back through this book, I have some new eyes. And in this chapter, I was telling Jim and Chester that what really hit me was an element from, I was raised Catholic, and there was an element that this book just sparked in me about the Catholic Mass and the Catholic service that I thought was really beautiful and about peace and the peace that we all want. It's the passage that Jim quotes in the book. It's actually on page 93 from John 14:27, where he says, Jesus tells you, I give you peace, the kind of peace that only I can give. It isn't like the peace that this world can give. So don't be worried or afraid. And I thought about that. I'm like, I've heard this. Why have I heard this? Why do I know this? And sadly, I'm not a Bible scholar. I really am not. But I knew this, and I knew this from the Catholic service. And my favorite part, when I think back to as a kid, my favorite part of the Catholic service was what we called the kiss of peace. And usually preceding that was our Lord's Prayer. And after the Lord's Prayer, the priest during the Mass would say this: Lord Jesus Christ, who said to your apostles, peace I leave you, my peace I give you. Look not on our sins, but on the faith of your church, and graciously grant her peace and unity in accordance with your will, who live and reign forever and ever. Amen. And he would say, now share with each other a sign of Christ's peace. And it was just a beautiful part of the Mass. And the next part would be the consecration of the Eucharist, which is the ritual mystery of converting bread and wine into the body and blood of Christ. And so it was very touching to me to kind of see that connection and what that really means. I mean, a lot of us go through ritual, we go through experiences just like I did, and not really fully grasp the depth or the deeper meaning of it. But coming back to this and the idea of peace really helped me to see the significance of that part of the ritual in the tradition that I was brought up in. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I just love that aspect of this chapter, which is really well organized. And having offered that now, I want to go into a little bit more depth of the chapter. And I think Chester's going to kick us off with a few questions for Jim.
Yeah, Jim, I read the chapter as well. And you mentioned, you talk about different types of peace, right? Worldly peace and God's eternal peace. Can you explain the difference between them?
I think the average person, when they say, well, Worldly peace. Worldly peace, they probably mean their actions is telling us what they mean is being happy. Okay. And happiness is good, except happiness is shallow compared to peace. Happiness comes and happiness goes. When we talk about God's peace, it's a taste of the eternal that he promised us, like what Brian just read, which is in John, which Jesus said at the Last Supper. And he said, I leave you peace, my peace I live you. And love, I leave you, I give you, I leave you peace, my peace I give you. And then right after that, he says, look, your sorrow is going to turn to joy. And when we look at the power of those statements, then when you realize that Jesus is gone, okay, all of a sudden, Pentecost comes. Holy Spirit becomes in each, access to the Holy Spirit becomes universal for everyone. Now you got to remember, if you read the Gospels, the apostles were completely different men after Pentecost, not before Pentecost. Even after they saw Jesus rise from the dead, they did not have that same inner power or inner confidence of God's continuing presence until after Pentecost. So when we talk about a clear before and after, it leads us to this. It leads us to acceptance. It leads us to forgiveness. It leads us to non-resistance, and it leads us to gratitude. Meaning, let's say you're a biblical scholar, okay? Jesus reduced it to a few sentences. What is the greatest commandment? Love the Lord thy God with thy whole heart, the whole side, the whole heart, the whole mind, the whole soul. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor like you love yourself. And then he says, which we don't hear enough of, all the laws and the prophets depend on these two commandments. How could we possibly mentally make a decision to say, well, you know, I love my brothers and sisters? Who's going to do that? How does it happen? Where do you get the power to make it happen? That power comes from that clear before and after when we put our trust in God. So when we say acceptance, whatever we accept no longer has power over us, period. Now, non-resistance. Whatever we resist has power over us. And when we're in resistance, we are accepting what is not. And forgiveness, if God forgives us, we have to forgive everyone else. Again, how can we do a morning practice or our prayers or any type of meditation or any type of spiritual practice and then go on and our motives go back to selfishness, self-consciousness, and strictly our own interest? It can't happen. We completely sabotage God's peace, which is the power of his spirit within us. And gratitude. If we do not have gratitude every day, we're going to lose it. Whatever we have, we're going to lose. But we don't have the power to do these things without an inner change. And that inner change only comes through stillness with the right intention and simply saying to ourselves, I put my trust in God. I put my trust in Jesus. And once we can surrender to that, nothing in our life will ever be the same. It'll all be beyond whatever expectation we had in our life about the quality of it will change far beyond what we thought it could be. And primarily because we're not doing it. It's being done to us when we surrender and put our trust in God.
So Jim, knowing that, why do people resist peace?
Very easy. Our whole life, most of us are in resistance far too often. Again, we go back to inner spiritual conditioning, okay? We resist it because we don't think it's possible. We don't think that God can truly change me. God can do anything, we can believe that, but we don't think God can truly change me personally. How could we do it? How can we truly believe it internally unless we experience it at some level? But we have, let's say right now, we have 20 men, 30 men. Let's say a number of men haven't done the practices, haven't done the morning practice, haven't done the hourly reminder, haven't done the breathing, the questions. Okay, let's say you didn't. Start right now. But this, I can absolutely tell you, if you think, or I think, we can do it on our own, we could change ourselves from the inside, just ask yourself one simple question. Why haven't you done it so far? Mm-hmm. And if you know or believe God truly has that power, you have to remember one thing. When he told us, be still and know that I am God, it is a commandment. And it's a commandment to know him intimately as a man knows his wife. Then you will know that I am is God. So if we don't put our trust in God, what's going to really change? Peace.
Thank you, Jim. And, brothers, if you have something to offer at this point, we do invite your voice into this circle. I will say that, from my experience in this workshop, I without a doubt, all of you have some sense of peace and some sense of presence. I'm sure that you've all had a transcendent experience or more than one transcendent experience in your lives. And you have some sense or some inkling of some greater peace and presence. And that's what's brought you here. Please, now's the time. If you have some comments or a question for Jim, we'd appreciate that. Ken, you're the first to raise your hand. Be sure to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, my question is for Jim. I think I was reading in chapter 8 where you shared that I think there was a period in your business where you were faced with a decision that you had to make, and it was one that I guess you had to spend a lot of time on, and it wasn't an easy decision, and it sounded like that it took you a while to decide what you were going to do, and I think you alluded to the fact that you were already using the presence, practice, but you struggled somewhat with that. And I know for myself that I can relate to that as far as where it comes to like decisions I've had to make in my career, challenges that I've faced, and how even though we might not be able to do it perfectly, doing a practice like this is helpful, because I think it allows us to maybe help us relax in the midst of trying to deal with the challenge that's facing us, and also maybe help us to trust that God's going to help us to make the decision and trust that it's going to work out for the best. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I know exactly what you're talking about because I wrote it, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it's this. What I did, even though I was obviously practicing presence like I do now. Now, It's called acceptance. Even though not very often am I in that state, thank God, for many years. But once you accept something, it truly does not have power over you. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't have anxiety. I did. I didn't have worry. I did. But there was a sense of peace around it. So it's like when you face situations like that, any of us, I don't care what it is. I got this thing going off. I don't know what the heck I'm doing with it. Anyway, when you have situations like that, okay, and you almost feel powerless initially, if you don't have a grounding, a spiritual grounding, and true trust in God and putting your faith in God, you are alone and isolated. And before that happened, many years before in my business career, I've had those moments of, there was a period of time I don't think I slept for 18 months. I was up 3, 4, 5 times a night, constant anxiety, worrying about what's going to happen in my business. If something goes wrong, am I going to lose everything? My family, it was horrible, horrible. But I wasn't practicing presence then. Did I believe in God? Sure I did. Did I go to mass and church? Yes, I did. That's different. It wasn't personal. It wasn't intimate. Now, if that same thing happened to me today, I would still be anxious, nervous, and worried. But if I lost everything, it really wouldn't impact me anything like it would have impacted me 30 years ago, let's say. Mm-hmm. Acceptance is so powerful. Once we accept it, even, we have it's a personal thing, but another person, you say, okay, I accept this person. That's it. Or it's a horrible business decision where you're going to lose money. You may lose your business. You have to say, well, I accept it. But you also have to accept the fact that, yes, I do have anxiety, and I accept that. That stops us from being isolated, alone, and in constant inner conflict and fear.
Thank you, Jim. Well, does anyone else have comment, question they'd like to bring into the circle? Clarence, please. Don't forget to unmute yourself here.
Okay, I think I'm in a bit of a conundrum. We talk about peace all the time. People have been praying for world peace probably since the world's inception. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's been very difficult to achieve. But I always go back to the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus says, and the peacemakers should be called the children of God. The peacemakers. If we look at civilization as our humanity as a whole, peace is very rare, very rare. So that's why I have found that I had to work inwardly to find my own inner peace. Because if I try to base my peace upon what the world is doing, I will never, ever, ever have it. And I think also it goes beyond one's, I want to say religion. I want to think more in terms of spirituality. To me, spirituality is much more universal. And unfortunately, when you look at Christianity and its profession for peace, but in actuality, it has not been for peace. It has not. And if you look at the Inquisition, the Catholic Inquisition, I mean, and what we've done to indigenous people in the world, and the quote of quote unquote, in the name of peace and love. So that is one that I am still working on. I'm working on having my own inner peace, because I know that it extends from me from my inside outwardly. In my own little spheres of influence, I always try to be a peacemaker. I want to bring peace to the situation, to the circumstance. But I realize that, a lot of people profess that they want peace, but they really don't. That is really a tough area to navigate. It really, really is. And I do believe that, you do need a higher power. You absolutely need a higher power to maintain your peace of mind. And just to have a clear head, you need a higher power, because there's so much junk out there, and we are easily influenced by not being able to, I guess, filter out all that negativity. We're just steeped in so much negativity. So it's a battle to maintain. And I like the quote that you started off with, Brian, where Jesus says, "My peace I give to you, not as the world gives it,
Yeah.
but my peace." Absolutely. And I think we are still trying to find the love that Jesus exhibited. If you ask me, he was like 10 million zillion light years ahead of us in terms of love. I mean, the guy who wrote the book was talking about Jesus in the two main commandments: love yourself and love God, love your neighbor as yourself. If we look at humanity, how many people have actually done it? It's a big deal.
I think what our obligation is as followers of Jesus is, when he started his ministry, here's what he told us: the kingdom of heaven is here for you now. Okay? Then he told us the kingdom of heaven is inside you. Then he told us, seek first the kingdom of heaven. That's our obligation. Our obligation is, you can only change the world. First of all, we can't change anything. God can only change the world if we allow him to change the world. So first we have to allow him to change us. And once we allow him to change us, then we're that little speck in the world. And there's nothing more we can do. But make no mistake, nothing is more important to me in my life, or I believe if all our spiritual teachers. One thing that's constant, I think, they're trying to tell us, you have to make conscious presence, stillness with intention, primary in your life to live real life. That's the best we can do.
Thank you, Jim. I think we should probably start moving towards our councils here, but I just want to thank everybody for their feedback and questions and input this evening. I think we're touching on something here is really critical, is the understanding of what Jim had described as worldly peace versus God's eternal peace. And I think really kind of reconciling those two, because I certainly myself, for the longest time was seeking worldly peace. And when the paradigm shifted for me towards a more looking at God's eternal peace, a much broader understanding started to emerge from my life, and possibilities. It's a journey for sure. It's ongoing, but I think that in the essence is really what this chapter of peace is about. So I'm going to put the questions, the journaling questions for our breakout prompts in the group chat so that you have those. And I'm going to ask Chester to go ahead and read the make meaning of the message, summarizing the chapter, and then also offer us the 4 intentions of counsel before we do our breakouts.
Okay, meaning of the message. I believe at our core, we all long for God's peace. But at the same time, we tend to be unaware of what is blocking true spiritual peace in our lives. No matter what our individual circumstances are, it is always unconsciousness when we flood our minds with compulsive, repetitive, negative thoughts, emotions, and reactions. And that causes us to lose access to the power and peace of the present moment. The peace of the present moment keeps us coming back and renews us throughout the day. We won't settle for getting lost in compulsive negative thinking. We know we have a choice. We stop mistaking that unconscious voice in our head for who we are. Our ego no longer has power over us. That is the greatest gift God has given us. His presence now, his peace. Presence is not a mindset, but a surrender to the spiritual power of the present moment, which humbles us because we know we cannot do anything meaningful in our life without connecting to God's spiritual energy through stillness. That is when God changes us from the inside, which ultimately changes everything we do outside.
So, brothers, before going to council, Chester will quickly give us the 4 intentions.
Yep, 4 intentions are as I've already said: listen from the heart, speak from the heart, be spontaneous and authentic, and be lean of expression. So it looks like we're not. How long do we have, Brian, for the breakout?
I think we're going to try to go 20 minutes. We may go a little bit 5 minutes late this evening, but because we're going to come back and we'll break for the evening. But 20 minutes, and I've got us in 4 breakout rooms. So every room will have at least 4, some 5 people. And if your typical leader or whoever it is that helps you with the journaling questions is not here, if someone could step up, that would be wonderful. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and open those breakout rooms. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for your presence here this evening. It's really wonderful to be with all of you men on this spiritual journey. It does occur to me that, you don't go on a spiritual journey without some intention. And while we may or may not be aware of it, we also have to incorporate presence in our spiritual journey. And so at some point, we're going to find ourselves in this position here where we're seeking peace, we're seeking presence together. So again, wonderful to see you this evening. We have one more weekend, and we really appreciate you being with us throughout this workshop. So please, if at all possible, do join us next week. We'll have a slightly different program. We don't have another chapter to recommend you read, although please do go back and explore Choosing Presence, the book, again, as often as you can or as much as you'd like. Go back into some of those topics that you really liked working with or maybe were very challenging to you. Continue doing the practice. Continue using the app to help support your practice. Contact me if there's any issue or you have any questions about the app that you can't resolve. And we'd like for this week for you to kind of reflect on the book and try to identify maybe 1 or 2 critical messages from the text that resonated with you. So look back over our time together, and are there 1 or 2 parts of the book that you would say are very important to you? And I want you to be prepared to bring those with you next time. So we'll be sharing those in large council group and also perhaps in breakout groups. And we also want you to, you notice that we had the candle presence here with us throughout. We really do want you to bring a candle with you to our final session next week and to incorporate that in our ritual. So if possible, if you have a candle that you can light, or if you have, I do hear the candle presence is actually a little electrical candle, bring that with you next week. It'll be important for our ritual. And this week we have one little homework assignment for you. We ask that you send us an email. So send it to Chester, myself, and Jim at answers@choosingpresence.org with the elements of this practice that you found beneficial in your practical daily life. We'd also love to know what parts of the book, those parts that maybe you're reflecting on, have resonated for you. So if you could send us an email sharing some thoughts about what you found beneficial in with this practice to your daily life, and also to share some parts of the book that were really resonant for you, we'd appreciate that. And I'll send out a summary email on Wednesday that will remind you of the things that we'd like you to bring to our final council. So with that, we invite you to extinguish your candles, metaphorically, literally, and we'll leave in silence, and we'll see you next week.
Peace, brothers.
Peace.